The story begins with a grim scene, countless skulls scattered across the ground, the remains of players who failed the challenge. Out of all the participants in this deadly game, only one has survived, Black Scythe. He made it this far after 99 attempts. Now, he walks into a glowing chamber where a group of guardians are already waiting for him. Without hesitation, Black Scythe draws his massive scythe. The guardians immediately charge at him, but he swiftly dodges their attacks and activates his skill, Seal of Death. This skill marks a target with a skull symbol above their head. Once marked, any attack from Black Scythe deals 100% bonus damage. He targets the marked guardian and takes them down with ease. Enraged, the remaining guardians launch a coordinated assault. In response, Black Scythe unleashes another skill, Night of Death. The entire area is plunged into darkness, blinding the enemies and allowing him to attack freely while staying hidden. But the guardians are no ordinary foes. They manage to dispel the darkness and retaliate with a barrage of fire and ice magic. Caught off guard by their speed, Black Scythe takes a direct hit. Desperate, he activates speed increase to dodge the next wave of attacks. But just as he evades the fire, he steps onto an ice magic circle hidden beneath him. Before he can react, he's frozen solid. As the guardians prepare to strike the immobilized Black Scythe, he suddenly breaks free by activating Moonlight Destruction. This will never end if I keep fighting them one by one, he thinks. I'll end it all at once. He reactivates Moonlight Destruction and unleashes another devastating skill, Red Moon. The attack wipes out all the remaining guardians. With the path now clear, Black Scythe proceeds deeper into the structure, arriving at a temple-like room with a massive door at its center. He steps into a glowing circle and wonders, is this it? Will I finally clear the game? Suddenly, an information window pops up. It states that at least 5 players are required to enter the boss room, but Black Scythe is alone. Shocked and panicking, he learns that failing to meet the requirement means death in 5 seconds. In those final moments, Black Scythe lashes out in frustration before giving in to despair. Time resets. He regresses once again, to the moment before round 1 began. This is his 100th regression. The scene shifts to a temple where a crowd is gathered. Among them is Ryumin, who has just regressed again. He's furious. This was his 99th failure. Now that he knows 5 people are needed to enter the boss room, Ryumin decides to find 4 allies and bring them to the final round with him in this run. Everyone outside the temple had gathered just minutes before the new year. Meanwhile, Ryumin's classmates, who used to bully him, are chatting nearby. They're discussing getting their IDs and what they'll do after graduation. One says he'll become a food delivery guy, while another dreams of becoming a gangster. That second one is Yongmin, and even after graduation, he has no intention of letting Ryumin go. He plans to keep using him as his personal lackey. Then they noticed where Ryumin was standing. After a moment of locking eyes from afar, Yongmin grew annoyed by Ryumin's persistent stare. Time quickly passed, and the new year finally arrived. Suddenly, a divine figure, a goddess, appeared, floating above the temple. All eyes turned to her in shock. The goddess began cursing at the humans below. Most people assumed it was just part of some elaborate New Year event, but Ryumin, who knew the truth, muttered, "She's finally here." One person took offense at the goddess's harsh words, but that only made her angrier. Without hesitation, she blew the man's head off, instantly throwing the crowd into chaos. Panic and screams erupted. The goddess then explained that everyone would now be part of a game. On the first day of each month, for 20 rounds, they would be teleported to another dimension to complete a mission. The only goal, complete the quest given in each round. She continued explaining the rules. Eventually, everyone was instructed to create a body and name their character. Ryumin picked the same body and name he always used, Black Scythe. Soon after, everyone was teleported to a vast open field, using the bodies and names they had just chosen. People excitedly admired their newly created avatars. Yongmin, of course, chose a muscular, bulky body. Then the goddess appeared once again. Everyone saw their own status window for the first time. She also explained the inventory system, which contained a single-use, random rune fragment that could only be used while the player was still level 1. And with that, round 1 began. The first quest, defeat 100 goblins per person. Only 5,143 participants will advance. The goddess spawned the goblins immediately. Without wasting a second, Black Scythe dashed forward, showcasing his overwhelming strength. His incredible display left everyone stunned. He even demonstrated impressive swordsmanship. Thanks to Black Scythe's performance, others began to feel more confident about fighting the goblins too. But then, a goblin ambushed the group, and panic broke out. People scattered in fear, trying to escape. But escape wasn't an option. The area was sealed by a barrier. Realizing there was no way out, the participants had no choice but to fight back. Watching everything unfold, the goddess grew increasingly intrigued by Black Scythe. He cut down goblins with such speed and precision that the goblins themselves began hesitating to attack him. Black Scythe checked his status window and saw that he had reached level 4. He allocated all his stat points into agility, increasing his attack speed and movement speed. After upgrading, he went right back into battle and swiftly finished the quest. Clearing the quest so quickly earned him rank 1 in the zone and rank 1 globally. The top 3 players in each region were given bonus rewards. Black Scythe received 2 prizes, a rare weapon selection coupon for being the top in his zone, and a special reward selection box for topping the global leaderboard. For the weapon, he selected a dagger called Stiletto, while choosing to keep the reward box in his inventory for later. He also received his titles and runes. Like everyone else, he got the time reversal rune and a random rune fragment. But because this was his 100th regression, Black Scythe unlocked a unique title, Last Time Regressor. Titles are even more powerful than runes and much rarer. Some come with exclusive skills. The title he earned included a skill called Resurrect, which allows him to fully recover HP upon death. Realizing how valuable this was, Black Scythe immediately set the title to private. No one else could see it. Black Scythe figured that the others should be close to finishing their quest by now. He also wondered if Yongmin was doing okay. Looking over in Yongmin's direction, Black Scythe assumed he'd managed to pull through. To lighten the mood a little, the goddess made the corpses of the dead disappear and spawned another 50,000 goblins. Despite the overwhelming odds, everyone gave it their all, struggling to survive. The number of remaining slots for players to clear the quest kept shrinking until finally the quota was filled. At that moment, all the remaining goblins vanished, and anyone who hadn't completed the quest was instantly erased, just like the dead. The goddess then revealed the ranking boards, both for the current zone and globally. Everyone already knew who was at the top: Black Scythe, the global #1. Curious, the goddess asked herself, "How did you become this strong? Did you get some kind of special rune or something?" Black Scythe casually replied, "Can't you just check my status window?" The goddess shot back, "You really think a goddess like me wouldn't be able to see your information?" But the truth was, she couldn't. She wasn't able to see individual status windows. Feeling like the rewards for being first weren't good enough, Black Scythe boldly made a request for something more. The goddess was visibly annoyed by his attitude. She even considered blowing up his head, just like she did to the other guy earlier. But the skill she used only worked once. So, instead, she came up with a different plan. With the excuse of giving him a special reward, she invited Black Scythe into the trial forest of assassination. As they walked deeper into the woods, the goddess's contempt for humans became more obvious. She truly believed they were beneath her. She had no intention of handing over a reward. Her real plan was to kill Black Scythe the moment they passed a large rock up ahead. But Black Scythe already knew what she was planning. Just as the goddess turned her head to look behind, Black Scythe struck first. She didn't have time to react. His attack landed cleanly, and she was sent crashing to the ground. Her blood began to spill. It was yellow. She stood back up, furious, ready to retaliate. But when she looked forward, Black Scythe was gone. The next thing she knew, he was already behind her. Without her noticing, he grabbed one of her wings and ripped it off. The goddess screamed in pain. A moment later, he tore off her other wing. Now she couldn't escape by flying. Black Scythe calmly explained that he already knew she had hidden a dagger in one of her wings and planned to kill him with it. She tried to lie her way out, but he saw through it. Then, he spoke her real name, Biriel. Shocked, she asked how a mere human could possibly know that. At that moment, Black Scythe drew his dagger. In a panic, Biriel threatened to blow up his head. But he wasn't fazed. He already knew that skill could only be used once. They exchanged a few final words, and then, without hesitation, Black Scythe drove the dagger straight into her heart. Just like that, the goddess was dead. And from her death, he earned a new title, the First Angel Slayer. Along with that title, he received one item and one rune. He immediately used the Rune of Slaughter, which increases all stats by 1% for every enemy killed. But the real reason he killed the goddess was for the item, Angel's Blood. Its effect? It could change a player's class to Reaper. Normally, when players reach level 10, they can choose a class by defeating monsters or meeting specific conditions. But unique classes like Reaper, those can only be obtained through special events, like this one. After that, Black Scythe opened his inventory and used the selection box he had obtained earlier. From the box, he chose the 3x EXP buff, since his priority now was to quickly level up to level 10 and unlock a class. Round 1 officially ended, and everyone was returned to their real bodies. Most of them looked around in confusion, unsure if what they experienced was real or just a strange dream. Yongmin also glanced around in disbelief, but then they noticed someone who hadn't woken up yet. One of Yongmin's friends went over to check, and the person wasn't breathing. Panic and confusion started spreading among the crowd. But while everyone was freaking out, Yongmin looked thrilled by the situation. Instead of being scared, he was excited. Yongmin began searching for Ryumin, but couldn't find him anywhere, so he assumed Ryumin hadn't survived round 1. Then, Yongmin noticed someone wearing armor. Curious, he tried opening the status window, and it actually worked. Everyone around him followed suit, opening their own status windows in awe. To test it out, Yongmin grabbed a stone and crushed it with his bare hands. The strength he felt was incredible. Meanwhile, news about the strange events in front of the temple had begun to spread. Ryumin, who was watching the report, muttered, "This is just the beginning." He was right. Player abilities had now transferred into the real world. At the moment, no one had high stats yet, so the effects weren't too drastic. But as players level up, they'll become beings that modern weapons can't even touch. Ryumin continued, "I can't just stand by and watch the world fall into chaos. If I let things play out, Earth won't even make it to round 20. There's only one solution. I need to control all the players with overwhelming power." Later, Ryumin returned home. Upon entering, he noticed an empty ramen cup lying around. He headed straight to his room, where he found his younger brother Ryuwan fast asleep. Ryuwan was a third-year middle school student. Their parents had died in an accident, leaving the two of them alone. Ryumin gently adjusted the bandage on his brother's hand and turned on the light. The sudden brightness woke Ryuwan up. Ryumin took the blanket off him and told him to get ready. They needed to go out. He promised to explain everything along the way. As they walked, Ryuwan asked why Ryumin looked so serious. Ryumin replied, "You have no idea what's going on in the world right now, do you?" Ryuwan blinked, confused. "Did something happen while I was sleeping?" Ryumin told him to check the top search results on his phone. After Ryuwan saw the trending news, worry filled his face. Ryumin was the only family he had left. To reassure him, Ryumin explained that he was now stronger than ever before. But instead of just talking, he decided to show Ryuwan what he meant by paying a visit to someone named Bang Taegyu, a thug from Ryuwan's class. In his previous life, Ryumin had discovered that Bang Taegyu had constantly bullied his little brother. One time, when Ryuwan went out while Ryumin was asleep, Ryumin later received a call from the hospital. Ryuwan had been admitted. The result: Ryuwan lost his eyesight, all because of Bang Taegyu. Inside an empty warehouse, Bang Taegyu and his gang were seen beating someone up. Not long after, Ryumin and Ryuwan arrived at the scene. When Bang Taegyu saw Ryuwan, he immediately yelled out his name. He also wondered who the person beside him was. Ryumin stepped forward and introduced himself as Ryuwan's older brother. Bang Taegyu scoffed and mocked Ryumin, then ordered his gang to attack him. But with his abilities, Ryumin easily took them all down. With his underlings defeated, it was finally Bang Taegyu's turn to face Ryumin. Without hesitation, Bang Taegyu launched a punch, but Ryumin dodged every strike effortlessly. Then, Ryumin counterattacked with his strength, forcing Bang Taegyu to stumble back. Bang Taegyu tried to retaliate again, but failed every time. His frustration grew, but no matter how hard he tried, none of his punches landed. Meanwhile, Ryumin kept hitting him, and even broke his fingers, unable to forgive what Bang Taegyu had done to his brother in a previous regression. Ryumin continued to beat him up until the rest of Bang Taegyu's gang ran away, terrified. Once Ryumin had gotten his revenge, he and Ryuwan left the warehouse. On the way home, Ryuwan asked where Ryumin learned to fight like that. Ryumin explained that players could now use their powers in the real world. To prove it, he showed Ryuwan the dagger he received as a reward from round 1. Ryuwan then asked about Ryumin's stats, but Ryumin lied, not wanting Ryuwan to know the truth. In his 11th regression, Ryuwan had been kidnapped after someone found out about Ryumin's power, and Ryumin was determined to prevent that from happening again. Even though he had gotten his revenge, he didn't want his brother to ever feel helpless like that again. Afterward, Ryumin suggested they grab breakfast together. They headed to a supermarket where Ryumin withdrew 100,000 won from his savings. He told Ryuwan to pick anything he wanted to eat, but Ryuwan simply chose spicy pork belly. Ryumin bought it for him, and they started eating right there. Then, Ryumin left for a moment and came back with a pen and 20 lottery tickets, each costing 5,000 won, for a total of 100,000 won. Ryuwan was shocked at what his brother just did. Ryumin just told him to wait and watch. When he finished filling out the tickets, Ryuwan noticed that every single ticket had the exact same numbers. Confused, Ryuwan asked why. Ryumin simply said, "Because those are the winning numbers." After that, they returned home, just in time for the Nado lottery draw. Ryuwan was extremely nervous, still thinking they'd wasted 100,000 won on lottery tickets. He would have preferred spending the money on food instead. But when the numbers were announced, Ryuwan was stunned, and then completely overjoyed. They had won. Tears welled up in his eyes as he stood up and screamed with joy. But for Ryumin, this was nothing new. He had done this many times before in his past regressions. Ryumin knew he had to gather wealth as quickly as possible, because in the future, the global economy would collapse due to 900 million deaths, and item trades between players would mostly be done with cash. Ryuwan still couldn't believe they had actually won the lottery. The next day, Ryumin went to the bank to cash in the ticket. He walked up to the front desk and told the receptionist that he was the lottery winner. At first, the receptionist was skeptical. Ryumin looked like just a regular student. She asked which branch he bought the ticket from. Ryumin answered, "Yonhui branch." The receptionist was stunned. That was the same branch where someone had just won with 115 tickets all at once. She asked Ryumin to wait for a moment. A few minutes later, the president of Nongyup Bank himself came out and escorted Ryumin to a private room. Inside, a woman mistook Ryumin for the bank president's son, but after the president introduced him, she was caught off guard. She began verifying the tickets and was shocked again. How could someone win by filling out all the tickets with the same numbers? Then Ryumin asked how much he had won. The total prize was 22.5 billion won. After taxes, Ryumin walked away with around 15 billion won. With the lottery winnings, Ryumin immediately bought a new home and opened a stock account, planning to invest in Bitcoin, which he knew would increase by 500% next month. He had done the same thing in many of his past regressions. When he returned home and told Ryuwan about it, Ryuwan was shocked, but Ryumin quickly reassured him, saying that he had another dream showing him the next winning lottery numbers. He then told Ryuwan to start packing. They were moving out soon. Meanwhile, Yongmin, who had poured all his stat points into strength, was absolutely thrilled. Now, with just his bare hands, he could punch through solid walls. After finishing his wall-smashing test, Youngmin headed to Ryumin's old house, planning to confront him. Youngmin had noticed Ryumin staring at him multiple times back at the temple, and it had annoyed him deeply. When no one answered the door, Youngmin grew even more irritated and started pounding on it. He still thought someone was inside, not realizing Ryumin had already moved out. Then the house owner showed up and told Youngmin that the previous residents had already left. Only then did Youngmin finally walk away. Back to Ryumin and Ryuwon. They had just arrived at their new home. Ryuwon looked around, clearly amazed. It was his first time seeing a place like this. Once inside, he was even more shocked. The apartment was so spacious, it seemed way too big for just two people. Ryumin had chosen this luxurious high-security apartment for a reason. When players re-enter the game, assassins would often be hired to kill other players in real life. This place was meant to protect him while he was away in the game. Ryuwon felt a bit uneasy, enjoying all this comfort while his brother had to fight in the game for their sake. But Ryumin reassured him that he was strong enough to survive the next round. The next day, Ryuwon suggested they bring rice cakes to greet their new neighbors. They rang the doorbell, but no one answered. Suddenly, a famous celebrity, Seo Arin, appeared behind them along with her bodyguard. Ryuwon was starstruck by her beauty, but the bodyguard quickly blocked them, assuming they were just fans. Ryumin calmly explained that they lived downstairs and had come to give a welcoming gift. But the bodyguard brushed them off and ushered Seo Arin into her home. Ryumin told Ryuwon not to mind them, but Ryuwon was actually thrilled. Their neighbor was a real celebrity. Meanwhile, inside her apartment, Seo Arin was watching the news, worried about the state of the world. She thought to herself, if I don't get a good rune, I might not survive. Her bodyguard came over and asked, "What are you thinking about, Arin?" She replied, "I'm just wondering, how did the world end up like this? How will I survive the next round?" The bodyguard reassured her, "Don't worry, I'll protect you." Just like in the first round, the bodyguard had protected Seo Arin, only letting her land the finishing blows on the goblins. Then Seo Arin recalled Ryumin and Ryuwon from earlier and thought maybe she should have accepted the rice cakes. They looked pretty tasty. She also wondered if Ryumin had to kill 100 goblins to survive, judging from his appearance. He definitely looked older than 15. Suddenly the name Black Scythe came to her mind, a player known for his terrifying skills and ability to kill goblins with ease. Seo Arin quietly asked herself, will I be okay after all this? We then skip ahead to Tuesday, January 31st, 11 a.m. Ryuwon was tidying up around the house when Ryumin returned after exchanging another set of winning lottery tickets. Ryuwon asked, "Did you reinvest the prize money into Bitcoin again?" Ryumin smiled and replied, "Yep. It's already grown to 150 billion won." After that, Ryumin told Ryuwon not to worry and invited him to spend some time outside before he had to re-enter the game. They came home at 11:55 p.m., and Ryumin immediately lay down on his bed, getting ready to enter round 2, with Ryuwon staying by his side. Ryuwon said softly, "You have to stay alive and come back, okay?" Ryumin replied with a smile, "Don't worry, you saw me beat up Bang Taegyu, right? I'll be fine. Now go get some sleep, I'm heading off." And just like that, Ryumin teleported back into the game. Everyone around was a bit shocked. They were really back inside the game again. Right away, people started focusing on Black Scythe, the player who had stood out the most in round 1. Then the goddess appeared. But something was off. Everyone noticed she looked different. The goddess then explained that the previous one had been involved in an accident, and she would be the replacement from now on. This video ends here, but the story isn't over yet. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss the next part.